We are live. Welcome to another episode of Moray Python Radio. We had a debate. We're going to go with 542. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that's what it is. And we are talking with Ari Flagle, and we are going to be talking about his recent trip to Papua New Guinea to talk about his research with the Boelen Python. And as always,
this other guy just wandered in. Yeah, I don't understand how he got here. Yeah.
So I sniff around and smell Ari, and I just kind of like trail in.
Depending on how this trip went, sniffing Ari may not have been that.
Basically,
at least once a year, sometimes twice. So
sometimes twice.
But everything kind of slowed down after the pandemic, so I'm like picking back up on where I left off as far as twice a year if possible. So
yeah, we always try to get an update of what's going on, so
we can live vicariously through.
We can hear all about the cool stuff that we can't see.
Probably the safest way.
Yeah. We let you go do all the dangerous stuff and then report back. Yeah,
I stay on the continent to the south.
Fair enough.
I like that one.
Fair enough.
So tell us about it, man.
How was this trip?
How was the trip? Yeah,
it was good. It was good to get back. I was there last August. For like 20 something days. And then I just got back. I was there, I can't even remember when it was. I think a week and a half ago, I've been back, or a week or two, I've been back now.
Okay.
So I was there for a good portion of the month, almost the full month. So everything is about the same. It's still wild and crazy, and you flip a coin and see how the day is gonna go. But I went to a new area that I had been scoping out with a new local group, new indigenous group that's there, and they were gracious enough to let me stay with them. And then we discussed me continuing to come out and visit them, because I think the area they're at's really unique as opposed to some of the other places I've been studying for the last 15 years. So this was a cool one. I got to see my first cliff nest, which I have never been able to experience yet. Everything that I usually encounter with nesting animals is, kind of like a, you climb up the mountain, you go down into this gorge kind of valley, and it's like this like highland swamp that I call, and like, they're in this area there. But this one was like alongside some cliff formations, and it was just like a really, I'd been sending messages to Keith while I was there and kind of just describing, what's going on and everything. And it was just an interesting kind of scenario. It looked very kind of uncomfortable for an animal to really reside in long term, but it was still really neat to see it. So, and there was a female sitting on eggs. It was about like another, I'd say at least a dozen eggs. So it was cool. So I got to record that one. And then there was another nest about 100 feet below her in more of the kind of atypical kind of style, I should say, that I'm used to seeing. So she had another clutch of eggs on with her too. So it was good. All my research really is kind of finally pointed in the direction of nesting ecology and biology with these snakes, because I just find it really cool how they reproduce in the wild so frequently, and their choices of like nesting environments and how stable it is, and everything that's encompassing with it. So it was a good trip. So I got some new things and stuff and temps and everything. So
cool. So this cliff nest, like, was it open, or was like she kind of sunk back a little bit?
Oh no, so it was sunk back. The way it was set in was the way the rocks, it's hard to describe. It's like walking on top of limestone that's pointed, and then inside, like the way the formation is, there's like these channels inside of it, and some of the channels go really shallow, and some of them just go straight down, and there's vegetation growing through it. So it's really, really unsettling walking on, and you've got to walk on top of the limestone pieces. So it's like these jagged, sharp rocks that you're walking on top. And this nest was against, I'd say about 3 feet of a footer on the bottom where I could stand on flat ground, and the rest was just sheer cliff down. And then she was We found her because she's obviously leaving sign out. We found the scat and her shed like inches away from her nest. So she was tucked into this like depression inside there, and then aside from the placement of the nest itself in this cliff formation, everything was atypical from what I'm used to finding in these other areas. So it was really cool to see a different variation in nesting. Historically, everyone says they live in these cave rock walls and in the cliffs and stuff, and I had never been able to encounter one in the places that I'm going to. So it was interesting to finally see one firsthand and look at it and think to myself, wow, this is not a good place to reside if you're an animal. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like there's with the other areas that I go to, there's chance for animals to interact with each other during the seasons, which is probably why the females choose to reside in these year after year. But in a spot like this is going to be more or less a one-time shot because there's not even enough room for two animals to be up there, let alone one. Able to breed and then find a place to nest. So my speculation with this was she bred lower down at the base of the mountain and then kind of went up, like kind of searching for a place for herself to find that worked for her. And it was the same kind of scenario where it's all tucked in and she made a chamber and everything like that. And the chamber it wasn't as deep as I'm used to finding. But the nest was protected by all the elements. And it was basically, but the only thing different about it was up elevated and was in this rock formation. But everything else of it was the standard, from what I'm used to seeing year after year. So it was cool. It was a very scary climb just because I wasn't expecting to be climbing in that kind of an environment. I'm used to doing my typical where it's along the cliff. I go in, I come out, I do that, and it's a lot of work and walking. But this one, I was actually having to balance on top of these sharp like cliffs. It looked like like Mordor. That's kind of like how I described it. I messaged my wife and I told her I was like, this area was crazy. I was like, it was like climbing over Mordor, and it was sharp, jagged pieces of limestone that would just crumble. But as always, she was, in her typical chamber with vegetation in soil where she was at, like everything was like normal, and she wasn't exposed. I've never come across a Boelens that's exposed before, unless it's out basking, because it's just the area was like there's not a lot of places to go also where that nesting chamber was where she was at. So it made me think also that this was just a one-time deal, that she was using this spot. But I don't know. I mean, the more I see, the more we understand. So
yeah, it'd be cool to see if she comes back like next year or something like that. If it worked out good for her and she's just going to come to this cliff face every year, that'd be interesting. I'd like to see that.
It's always cool though, like how they have it positioned, because obviously they get it where the sunrise hits it first, so they get that warmth of the day, and they get that UV exposure, and then then they get cloud cover and protection. I mean, obviously there's nothing going to be up there to pull them out. She was about, I would say, she was all of 9 feet. She was about an average female. I just got a message from Keith also asking about the babies. That was one thing I was thinking of too, like where the babies go in this kind of a scenario. And there's all these little rock, like little cracks and little holes and stuff in the rocks. I'm sure they just zip right down in there. And that'll protect them. I mean, I did see a New Guinea eagle this time in the area I was at, so that was cool.
That is cool.
So, and that's going to be the predominant, predator for these animals up to a certain size. Obviously babies are going to get picked off by that.
Right.
So they probably know the season, so they're probably hanging around. But as with the babies, some of in the other like more like level nesting areas that I'm used to seeing, they could disperse after they shed, and they just disappear into the ferns and the vegetation. But on this, they're probably going right into the rock. because it's warm, it's security, and there's little lizards and stuff that they're predominantly feeding off of, so they're able to probably catch them easier in the area.
That's cool.
Well, let's hit this question first.
Yep.
In the cliff nesting versus ground nest, did the animals behave in the same regards to defensive protection over the nest?
Yeah. I have never had a defensive or an aggressive Boelen's python I've interacted with in the wild. And they're very much in a kind of, they're very calm.
Mm-hmm.
And they're curious as far as like what I'm doing, because like I obviously am not trying to disturb the animals one bit, because I'm just trying to observe, what she's doing naturally, and then the environment itself. So there's very, very limited interaction on my part when I'm there, stuff like that. I was doing more of that in my initial research stuff, where I was trying to get like, animal weights and animal lengths and stuff like that, atypical, as opposed to doing like now this, nesting ecology, where I'm more focused on what she's doing in this nest and the way the nest is designed and things. But everything was the same. It was just the fact that it was on a cliff, which was interesting.
Yeah, I think about the not tour guides, but the guys that were taking you around. Were they barefoot walking on those jagged cliffs?
Yeah, I still don't understand it.
What the hell?
I had like the head guy that owned the village, and then like his brother, who came with me, and they're walking around barefoot, and it's just like, and then like obviously like. The funny thing with the Highlands is when you're out there, like, if you're hiking or just walking around, like people are wandering around and stuff, and they'll just say like, oh, what they're doing sounds interesting, so I'll follow you guys, So I had like, I think like 2 or 3 other spectator locals with me. They were just like they had nothing better to do but walk on top of these sharp rocks with me, barefoot, and go through these, this area. And then found out that I was looking for a snake, and they were just like, oh wow. So but yeah, they're barefoot.
No.
Okay. This was the first question that popped up, but did you see a male this time? Or
no, I have not seen a male. I am on the lookout for a male now. It's it's my thing, with the speculation I have with them is I feel like the females reside in territorial areas, or areas which they're more or less residing in more frequently, and the males are cruising, and they're trying to pick up on all those female pheromones by them leaving all the scat and the urates in the sheds outside these nesting areas, and that's what basically brings these males in. I don't think they're in close proximity to these nesting areas at all, except for the season, which is breeding.
So they're breeding away from these nests then? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know.
That's kind of the thought.
My theory with these like lower elevation, or not lower elevation, these non-cliff nests, is that they reside in these nests a lot of the time throughout the year. To utilize them, in my opinion, also to an extent. Some of them do, because obviously, but I found old eggshells in the nest with a female on eggs and stuff like that. I found 2 or 3 nests like that so far, which is interesting. But I certainly think in some scenarios the females stay there because it's perfect, a perfect place for them to get away. They can breed, they're safe. They have everything they need. So as opposed to, cruise.
Uh-oh.
No.
He's like, no, I have so many questions.
I know. I have like 20 questions for you.
Yeah, no, God. Well, all right.
Jack.
Well, I'm just going to make up the answers. I have no experience, but I'm just going to say things.
Why not? Everybody else does.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. That's a good one, Keith. Took me a minute.
Yeah.
It's slow getting back on the horse, but I get there. So I guess my first question is the idea of do you go there with a purpose before the trip, like an idea of question that you have in your head? Is this how your research is formulated? Like how does that process work?
Like I said, initially when I had been going out these years before, like I kind of went out with just like kind of like an open mindset of I'm going to experience whatever experience, I'm going to collect whatever data that's presented to me in that situation. And now that I'm focusing on this nesting behavior and everything, like I will start off with an idea, and that's my goal, because a lot of times having multiple goals in one of these trips is just not realistic, just with being able to accomplish things. And it's much easier to accomplish a single goal and then get that finished. And then if there's time or the option, then focus on the other questions I have. But I'm always asking, the locals and stuff like that when I'm there, if they've seen this or this scenario, or have they experienced this, or have they heard this, or things like that. So.
Okay.
Lay down the groundwork for the next trip.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keith, you have a bunch of questions that are all great questions.
Well, what Ari just said, if you think about our trip to Australia, even, right? So we're going there and we're just experiencing the habitat. And look at how many times we can go and just learn from just walking and experiencing the habitat.
Yeah.
So like Ari's been doing this for 15 years. I'm sure the first trips that he did there was just to get kind of in tune
I'm still
with the environment. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, because like I'll be like thinking, is like, okay, what's the humidity like right now, or I'm looking around, I'm like, oh, I see a new kind of plant I haven't seen, or this temperature seems different this time, or something like that. So it's like, I'm constantly observing the environment where I'm around. And like, then I was like walking on the tops of these jagged rocks, and I'm thinking to myself, this is a crazy place for a snake to live. Why would a snake want to go up here? I don't want to go up here, so why would a snake? It's like, well, it's like, well, it's away from, it's a protection. It's a super protected area, obviously, because of the way the geography is formed and everything. And it's just not an easily accessed area for most things, let alone humans, to go. But I kept thinking to myself when I was looking at this animal, it's like, why are you up here? Like, what's the reason? Like, this is, you must have been getting very close to being, egg, depositing rather, and it had to go then. So
ran out of time looking for a nest. Yeah.
Having a little bit of.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering, though, as far as the elevation and Ari seeing the females up high. Like, Ari, is there less mist cloud cover at the higher elevations than at the lower elevations where the animals are known to inhabit? Like, do they move up to get more sun, maybe, versus the lower elevations of their range?
We got the spinning ball of death.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. No.
Yeah, I'm curious too. That we talked about the African rock python with the babies and staying in the nest for a certain amount of time. I'm wondering if Ari has any thoughts when it comes to that, as far as with
how
this
long
species.
baby Boelens might, or I mean, if mom is,
there we go.
Oh yeah. So yeah.
Go ahead, Keith. I don't know. You probably have to ask that again.
I don't know if you heard that, Ari. I was just wondering if at the higher elevations where you're seeing the females in the nest, is there any difference in the mist cloud cover there than where they're known to be at their lower elevations in their range?
It's a little. Obviously the ultraviolet light exposure is going to be more intense, obviously, because you're up higher, and the temperature is a little different. It's a little warmer too, but aside from that, everything else is pretty similar. But it's like I was saying, like I felt like this animal, like this was not a. I mean, obviously it worked for her. That she was brooding her eggs, but it's as far as like a favorite place, I was very surprised. I was really surprised that she was right there in that. I was like,
but even I'm saying even the lower nests that you typically find, you're saying the males may be at even lower elevations. So are the females moving up to get more exposure to the sun, you think?
I don't know. I don't think the males are at lower elevation. I think they're just spread out more. So they are cruising out. They're at the same elevation as the females, but they're just cruising as opposed to, waiting. And they're just looking for females. That's my theory, is they're out. And, and having multiple animals, hunt down a single female, obviously I think helps out.
Yeah.
But this cliff nest thing, like, there's no way those animals bred up there on that shelf. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. So that's why I was saying, like, I felt like that female bred lower down at the base of that cliff, and then was kind of when she left, she was looking for a place that, and that's where she found that happened to work for her.
Mm-hmm.
If the females return to the same nesting site year or after year or stay close, could it be potentially that she may have gotten kicked out of her site? Because you said she was like a 9-foot animal. Like, if she came back to her normal site and somebody was already there, I guess it just try to find a new spot.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, realistically, we don't know anything about these animals in the wild. Like, we're just like, observations at this point with all this, behavior and everything. So it's very, very possible. Like, I mean, I remember one time I found 2 nests within 20 feet from each other in a lower level valley. And still up in that elevation, but it was in a low valley in that kind of more swampy-ish kind of habitat. And then, I found an animal, I found another nest that was in very close proximity also from one another. So it's very possible that these animals, for whatever reason, will leave an area to search out a new nest that they want, and it might get kicked out. I don't know. It's a good question. I hope to have the answer one of these days, yeah, that's what we do. That's what they do.
Do they have a specific elevation that they don't go below?
I have not found anything below 6,500 feet.
Okay.
But I haven't really looked heavily at lower elevations, because when I'm with the locals, I say, okay, where did you see the animal?
Right.
And they always take me to this elevation. So
Right.
I've never gone like low. I mean, because I mean, it gets cool still down in the lower elevation with it, but it's just not a favorable environment, I think. But I don't know. I mean, they could have been there and they just could have migrated, pushed themselves out up further or deeper in, just because of habitat loss or human encroachment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is there a theory? Do you have a theory as far as, like, I think of, like, sea turtles returning to the nest the year after year, and or even the babies returning to where they were hatched out originally. Is there any thought as far as that goes?
I don't know. I would really like to see it out of the nest, like like a yearling or something like that. That'd be really interesting and really see. I mean, obviously, being able to find it would be so difficult, because they just disappear in that vegetation. They're gone.
Yeah.
So I don't know per se. I think it's like, after they leave the nest with the mother, typically after they shed first, they'll leave, and I think they just disperse on their own and they just kind of do their own thing. And then the females, I think for the most part, I think a lot of the females stay where they're at. And they just reproduce in those areas for however many years they want, or if for whatever reason, a temperature's not right or something like that, then they seek out another area that's of similar kind of, parameters
Sure.
to nest in.
I mean, when you think about it, that habitat, right? The only way you probably see a lot of animals, first of all, is by the nests are obviously clues to find. But otherwise, unfortunately, unless you're developing and clearing land, then you find everything that's in the area, because you're stripping the land down to its essentials.
You're
but other
exactly
than that,
right.
It's not like, Ari, when you and I were walking, I'm like, oh, you're going to find black rat snakes here. It's like wide open country, and they're going to be on the move and they're easy to spot. I mean, where you're at, you literally got to trip over them to find them, or find a nest, or obviously scat or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I asked this new guy that I was that wanted to help me, this new village, and I had asked him, I was like, how long have you been looking? And he's like, I haven't. He goes, I just started finding them. And I'm like, well, how long have you looked before you found one? He goes, sometimes I'll walk for I'll spend 2 months in an area looking before I even find one. And then I asked him, like, well, what are you looking for? And he's telling me about, like, the shed and the scat and all that stuff. They've got very, very good vision, and they notice really, really small, minute things. So, he's wandering around in an area for a month or two before he even finds an animal.
That's
so
crazy.
like exactly like I said. I mean, if you go there and you bulldoze down everything, you're going to find them. But otherwise, and that's why I think the males, they shack up in a hole or something like that, and or some vegetation, and they just kind of do their life until it's that season, and then they start searching out for those females, and they cue in on all those biological factors, and they find the females.
Yeah.
That's is it am I right picturing him? I mean, the thought that I have in my head of what this environment looks like is similar to like the Pacific Northwest, like a colder rainforest type of environment.
Very, very similar to that. Yeah, it's almost identical to that. But then so with that environment, I've never been to the Pacific Northwest, but I'm taking like all the info I know on it and kind of relating it. So bear with me.
Mm-hmm.
So like in the cooler stages of the day, I would attribute it to be more similar to that. And then you'll have intermittent periods throughout the day where cloud cover will disperse, and you'll be hit with really intense light and heat. Now, the heat might be only 78 degrees, excuse me, but it feels like you're in the upper 80s just because of that heat and that solar radiation. So yeah, it's really intense.
That's cool.
Wow. Okay. Anything, Keith?
Oh, I got so much in my head.
Good. Well, then that's why. I mean, yes, Keith. That's the question.
I feel like Keith is holding back. He has so many questions.
Yeah, just do it. Like, it's the point of a show. It's
Don't worry about us.
You've been on the show before, Keith. Like it's.
No, I mean, obviously, I would love to go with Ari and just sit there, but I mean, unless Ari can get there for like a year and get out there every day, like think about it. Like he's gone for 15 years, and let's say what, Ari, average two trips a year, 3 trips a year if you're lucky.
Yeah.
So think about how much he's picked up in 30 to 40 trips going over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's
and
huge,
still we know nothing.
I mean, it's like, I mean, the trip to get there is just so tasking. That's the thing. It's just, and it's just not a comfortable, accessible place to stay long. I mean, that's the other thing. It's like, and expensive. I mean, you're in a third world country, but it's still expensive. Like, to rent a vehicle to get there. You've obviously got to, I'm always, basically paying my host for letting me stay in the village. I'm paying for food for them.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, which is not a problem, but it all factors in there. And then, you're talking, a hike that's an hour to 2 hours from the village to where the nest or where a snake was. And it feels like a 3-hour hike because you're climbing terrain that is just not meant to be climbed.
Right.
So there's a lot of different factors in it. I mean, I'd love to stay there for a year and just see what I would encounter,
Right.
But it's just, it's just a difficult environment to stay like long term, on that level,
The thing that blows my mind though is that even with all the visits there, like Ari hasn't seen like a lot of prey that you could say, oh, there's couscous left and right. That's got to be what they're feeding on. It's an assumption, you know what I mean? Like he's not seen, and he's there for 20 days at a clip. You know what I mean? Or even predators that are preying on them. Look at how many times to see an eagle. Like it just seems like everything just disappears there. But obviously, when Ari's not there, that world is continuing. It's just mind-boggling to me what all is happening.
And a lot of it too is the way that these local people interact and move through their environment. They're quiet. They're accustomed to the terrain. So, when I walk through, you hear me walking through. I'm making noises. I'm not as smooth as some other people. I mean, I'm a good hiker and I'm a good climber because I've been doing it for so long, but I'm not a popwin, so it's not like I'm not walking through these areas without, being seen, more or less.
Right.
And I think a lot of that attributes to prey items that, might potentially be there and just be gone. I did see some birds that were outside of a nest in last August that the locals, took opportunity and they shot them so they could bring them back to eat them. And they were right outside the Boelen's area, and they would have eaten that for sure. But I've never seen a goose out there. I've seen dead ones that have been hunted for dinner. But I've never seen a live one walking around. I've never seen any kind of rodents that are there. I know they're there. And I've seen some like ground doves before, but that was just like a real quick glimpse of them too. So, but yeah, it's like I said, when I'm there, like I'm pretty in tune with my environment when I'm there, but I'm not a popwin. So, with that being said, like, anything's going to know I'm coming through because it's just not my environment,
Well, that's a really good point, because like in my rural area, like you've been in you guys all been in at my house, and there's white-tailed deer that will walk across my lawn. I'll go out to my car and I literally got to like run after them, and they're wild deer. Nobody's feeding them or anything else, but they're just so damn used to seeing people. But you take that white-tailed deer and you go up to Saskatchewan and you go out to try to hunt it, and they're like ghosts. Like you don't see nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're there. And they've probably seen you about 100 times, but
So so they live in an area that just does not see a lot of human walking around. So everything, like you say, is in tune to just that, which makes the research just so much harder to do there.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely makes it harder, but it makes it a lot more. The challenge is what keeps bringing me back, because it's like I want to keep seeing like what I might experience this next time, or what, like last August I had an animal that had I was talking to Keith about potentially like combat scars on it. Because it had these big, it had two big gashes on it, either from biting or from spurs, and it looked more like spurs to me.
Yeah, it looked just like that male that I had, the two males that combated. It was like the exact kind of wound.
And it was really cool, but it was on a female. So I was wondering, I was like, okay, maybe there was a couple males with her, and the males got really excited and they tore her up, mistaking it was the male. But I don't know, But yeah, so I mean, I've seen like little things like that. So it's like, keep coming back. I don't know what to expect. It's going to be like, another like a game changer.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's a cool observation.
Doesn't it suck, Ari, that the snakes that we love are on the other side?
Of the goddamn country. If we all loved rat snakes, we'd be so happy.
It's not just like a 4-hour flight, man. It's like it's 2 days, 3 days.
Yeah.
God.
And it's not getting any safer over there for you either, is it? Like, I think the last time you told us it was really dangerous going over there.
Oh, it's always dangerous over there. It's just what somebody off, or what's or what drama's going on. I mean, it's a very third world place. It's not a dangerous place, but yet it is a very dangerous place, if that makes sense. I don't know. Like it's people get kidnapped still. There was a bunch of people that were they're talking about kidnapping while I was there and everything like that. I'm like, oh, that's exciting, and I mean, it's just like, and then like everybody's like fighting over something. They fight a lot with the Indonesian government, so it's like a lot of it is like innocent bystander kind of catching an arrow or a machete or something like that, and then it's like, but it's like, I don't know, it makes it. I mean, if it was so easy, it wouldn't be fun.
Everybody would do it.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't. My wife hates when I say that, though. She's like, "Man, it's not that." but it is. It's still very dangerous. I mean, I get, like I said, I get contacted by people all the time. They're like, "Oh, I'd love to carry your bags. I'd love to do this." I was like, "I'm sorry, I'm not taking you, man." I was like, "I do not want to be held liable for that." Because it's like.
I know when I fall out of Ari's graces when he says, "Yeah, come to Papua with me."
Listen, we're all far too afraid of Teresa to put you in danger.
Frederick. I keep talking to Frederick. Frederick wants to wander around at night, and I'm like, dude, it's not safe, man. He's like, why not? I'm like, because you'll fall and you'll keep falling. I was like,
Yeah.
at the bottom to hold you up. I'm like, it's like I'm not going to do that. It's like.
Well, that's a good question. So you're seeing these animals that are when you're going to these spots. Is it a specific time all the time? Do you have like a specific time frame that you see them?
I've visited pretty much every month of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like with my main focus with this nesting ecology, my goal is to see animals in a nest. So my time to go is, November, December, January, a little bit early November, kind of stuff like that. And that way I can track down the females and I can find out who's nesting and see if I have any repeat snakes that I've seen before. I've had that a couple times, which was cool.
Yeah.
But and then it's just like the difficult thing is it's just like the politically everything out there changes like on the drop of a dime. Like with 1 week, it's like, oh, it's great, and then the next week they shut down the internet and nobody's got contact to go in there, and it's like who knows what's going on. And
oh wow,
then you've got tribal law and you've got locals that are there but they're not tribal. It's it's just it's a whole shit show. Usually that's what I usually call it. It's a shit show.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, we have a question about a carpet python, but did you ever see any poplin carpets up that high?
I have never seen another snake in the area I have been at. And now it's not to say they're not there. I know scrub pythons can get up there. I've just not looked for them,
Okay.
So I mean, I had a scrub python last year brought to me that was collected in town. So that was there, and I know they're there. It's just a different environment to find them than where I'm at. So if that answers the question better,
yeah.
That I mean, like I said, I don't think the carpets are up that high in that area, but the scrub pythons get up pretty high too with them. So
that's interesting that you would have a scrub and a Boelen's be in the same area, because you would think that they would be competing
area. I mean, in the same I don't know. I mean,
different elevation.
I wouldn't expect to see one in the habitat where I find a Boelen's. But in the region, they're there.
I gotcha.
Okay.
It's a different habitat to find them in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Timothy just asked. I don't know. What's your thoughts when it comes to the idea of Boelen's sort of being a evolved scrub python?
Yeah, a different scrub. Yeah.
Or maybe a basal.
I know they went to Somalia because of morphological differences, cranial differences, dentition and things like that, and they lumped them, or they didn't lump them, they put them in with that group with all the scrubs and everything because they're the closest relative. And I see a lot of similarities with them overall, like morphologically, like how they move and things like that too, the size and the shape of the body and everything. But I honestly haven't worked with scrubs that much to really behavioral similarities with them. I certainly have not encountered wild scrubs in my work to be able to relate it to seeing wild Boelens either. So, but I mean, if you want to get down to it, I do think they're more closely related to scrub pythons than they are to anything else. If that's but they're a different entity, if that makes sense.
It's kind of like green trees and rough scales, very similar, different habitats, obviously.
Yeah,
one's cooler than the other. One's bumpier.
One's bumpier. One's got bigger teeth.
Yeah. One I love, one I can do without. Yeah. So it's fine.
So you're studying the nesting ecology. What is your, I don't know,
what's my goal?
Yeah, like what's the long-term goal? Yeah.
I don't know, really.
Cool.
I think what my goal would be to gain a better insight on their behavior in utilizing nesting as opposed to other large, pythons in that family that don't use that similar behavior. Like I want to know why they decide to do that. I want to know what they seek out. I'm starting to understand why they seek it out, but I'd like to know what they're particularly seeking. And I'd like to know how many, and like, if there is like a nesting fidelity with them as far as reutilizing areas in, home territories and things like that, because that would make them even more interesting to me. And I think that would make it a little different than just saying that they're like a type of scrub python, because I don't know the ecology on scrubs, because that's not my focus. But it would be interesting to see, not interesting to see. It'd be. I would like to understand more the specifics on their nesting choices, and why.
Okay.
If that makes more of their reproductive effort and reproductive biology simpler, then that's really interesting, and I want to know why.
Is there, do you have a theory as far as, or I don't know, I've kind of like not followed the captive breeding side of things when it comes to Boelens, but is it similar to say like a varanid where, they won't lay eggs if their nest isn't a specific, do you have any theories as far as that goes? Like that they have to have specific.
I don't know. Like I've seen a lot of, like, recently there's been, fortunately there's been some successes again in the US, which is great.
Yeah.
Awesome for these guys. The But like I don't know necessarily if in a captive situation if the nesting plays a significant role or not, where because the biggest issue that we find with captive animals is just being able to get an animal to ovulate to become gravid. So I feel like if the animal is gravid and has eggs and is developing eggs, then it's going to basically find a nest at some point sooner or later. It's going to have to work to be able to deposit those eggs in a cap setting. But as opposed to the wild, I find it different. I think in the wild, I think there's a lot of different factors. And those could relate into captivity as well. I mean, like I think providing necessary things that are a necessity with captive success, like providing nesting access from the beginning, before you're even introducing animals, or in the basic structuring of husbandry, like your housing and anything like that. I think having a nesting area is very important. But the whole thing of itself is interesting. So yes.
So
I wonder,
Ari, if I could just jump in. Sorry, Eric.
Yeah. No, you're good.
Eric,
that's why we have you, Keith.
Wild nests, Eric, from carpet pythons. Let's say, I know you guys look at a lot of pictures like of stuff in the wild.
Yeah.
But what Ari shows me to me seems so different in the fact that, like, it's literally like a snake inside of a crocodile nest. Like it seems like there's contact all the way around. Like he literally has to dig them out to even get a glimpse of the snake and half an egg, and the rest of the picture is just substrate packed all around the animal. Like, have you seen that in any other wild python, Eric?
No, not where it's
like that. No.
So I think that's what Ari's saying. Like the nest is so unusual for that python compared to what other species of python.
Yeah.
Like why is that?
Yeah, and a lot of it I don't know. Like, I know with a lot of snake reproduction, Quetzal told me there's a term he uses where it's like called contact security, and I really like that term because it makes that animal feel, it's like where you'd feel comfortable in a room if the room was like, you're not claustrophobic, because or the opposite of it, rather, if that makes sense. You're in a room and there's nothing to keep you feeling safe. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
And with the contact security there, it allows that animal to feel secure and focused on what its job is, so it doesn't feel like it's going to be exposed to anything. And a lot of times it's just like a hole, maybe 2 or 3 inches, and then the animal's in it, and then just push out that indention in the side. Dentention. I don't think I butchered that word. Dentention. Yeah, and whatever. And then it basically creates that really tight chamber. And even I was talking to Frederick about it. The eggs, wild eggs, look so different than captive eggs too.
I was saying that in the last pictures you sent. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you have that one, Keith. I can.
That's so cool, though. I love how they're packed in there because that, I mean, it kind of reminds me with some of the bigger stuff like in Africa. Because I know we were looking at the rock python, and it seemed pretty packed in there. But I think that's just because of the sheer size of that animal. It's like try to find that thing a crevice where it doesn't look like it's jammed in there.
Yeah. I will say this. I will say this about real quick. It just made me think of this. The reason that I switched to paper towel rolls for carpet python hides,
baby hides,
is because of that reason, right? Because I noticed, like, I don't know, I think I was talking to Rob about this, and he was saying about how snakes like to feel, like their security, is like if they're touching all sides of their hides, whereas like some of those hides are like, I don't know, when I was first getting into snakes, you'd have this big ass hide because you'd wanted to have all this room, and it would, it's like this tiny snake and this big ass hide. But they use that a lot to where they're just jammed in there. Obviously, they're not, these are small snakes and stuff, so they're not necessarily, doing that for breeding or anything. But maybe there is a sense of security with that.
Oh yeah,
I think it's more of a critical role than we think. With a lot of different species, honestly. I'm trying to find a picture of some of this environment. I'm scanning my hard drive.
Oh, and can you put that picture up of the marshmallows?
Oh yeah.
The dirty marshmallows, the dirty marshmallows,
are
you out in the jungle? Yeah, I don't know what those are. It's like,
they really do look like a marshmallow. What the
hell? Right?
Ari's Reacher says, "How many animals can he poop while he's out in the wild?" Like, I know what. I love that. That's
they even look different,
Yeah.
As far as that.
I would say that, like, so I started with my cages and my animals with like a 10-gallon tough tote, which was for like my giant carpets that I never should have gotten that giant. And as my animals have gotten smaller because I've gotten smarter, I have gone down in size as far as hide box. And I mean, having an adult white lip cram itself into a box and that's where she laid the eggs is really helpful. So I think that contact thing is totally true in wild and captive.
I completely agree. It makes the animal feel so much more safer and secure in that environment that we're providing. And and a lot of times I did that too when I first started I put it in there and I'm like, hey, whatever. But I found that, obviously I have not been fortunate enough to reproduce them, hopefully one of these days. But I feel like having a smaller nesting box out because it allows that to feel more secure in that environment. So on.
Yeah.
So how would you describe the substrate in the nest? Material, moisture, etc.?
So if you can see on that last picture, I think there was a picture that you guys posted up.
Yeah. Hold on, I'll get it.
It's right now. There's like the cleanest type of soil and root matter. That's the actual outside of the nest, or that's
right,
the
you see the
outside of the nest. So you can see like all the root, and it's just like fiber, broken down leaf litter. It's just really clean. Very. The smell is just like this wonderful earthy smell to it. It's not damp, but it clumps up in your hand when you squeeze it. So there is moisture in it. But it's like a peat kind of, like almost like a thicker peat kind of feel to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That what is it? That cocoa fiber, the cocoa husk fiber. Yeah, that
Reppy chip.
No, the stuff that comes in a brick that you wet and it just expands like crazy.
Yeah, it's like moss with like some thicker texture and consistency to it. I mean, it's perfect. It smells so good. I mean, it's like the freshest. It's like that's the way I can describe it. It's awesome.
It's the best dirt ever.
It's the best dirt ever. Yeah.
Timothy here was asking, what other reptile species do you encounter when you're looking through these holes at higher elevations?
So I have never really came across any other reptiles in this environment because I haven't really looked for them. And I'm pretty good at observing stuff while I'm out in the field being, a herper. Like we key on like the slightest movement and we like look at it, it's like, oh, what's that? And this last time when we were walking out of this on top of this cliff, there was a Hypsilurus papuensis. It's a type of lizard that I'd never seen there, and it's a large-sized lizard. It was probably about 6 or 7 inches long, and that was like right by the nest, which was cool. So that was the first lizard I've encountered aside from little ground skinks in the area.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
You go lower in elevation, Papuan death adders. They're pretty significantly lower. They're not up that high in elevation. So.
Gotta love digging around where there could possibly be death adders. Just go a little bit higher before you start digging around. Yeah, let's not do that.
We're worried about stuff. There's a big rat supposed to be there too that I have not. They said it's the size of a cat, and I really want to see it because I don't know what it is. Because I'm on my trips. Last August, I saw these. Like I was coming down. It was just like this really incredible scene. Like coming down over this cliff, going down into this valley, and like it just kind of looked out high. Or I saw these like little teepees in a while on the ground. They were probably maybe like I don't know, like inches, 13 tall. I was asking them. They said they were traps, and I'm like, well, what are you trapping? They said there's a rat that lives around here that we like to eat if we can catch it. Like really, how big is it? Oh, it's the size of a cat. I was like, wow. I was like, okay. I was like, not a goose. When they said no, so there's a big rat there. I'd like to see. Kind of cool. Probably something different.
Yeah, it would be something different. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Did I get all the questions? Yeah.
I think so far. Others will pop up.
Hey, you know what I was wondering? Eric, like when we're in Australia, like, Ari, do you run in when you're still in town? Let's say, do you run in to anybody that may be like a birder or somebody looking for plants or anything else that is being for in that same area that you're in?
So I have historically come into contact with people that were just trekking there in some bird stuff once. Aside from that, I have not run into any other people there looking for animals. Which I mean, it's just not a comfortable place in general to go. But I mean, people do go there. Obviously, they go trekking because there's some real famous trails to go that are like multiple day trips. So, but I have not. One time I ran into a birder that was there with a portering group or something like that, and they were looking for birds or something. But aside from that,
it would be cool to pick their brain. Like if you could run into somebody that is studying. I mean, there's got to be other psychos out there like you that want to go to the area.
Oh yeah, sure.
and study that giant rat or something. Like it would be cool to pick their brain.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of it too is it's just very difficult and like very inaccessible in some of these places too. So not a lot of people go there now, even though people are trying to go there. Like I had somebody reach out to me that wanted to do eco trips there, and I'm like, I wouldn't recommend that. And they're like, well, why not? I'm like, well, it's not safe. And they're like, well, I'm used to traveling, in really remote areas, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, that's fine. But, there's a lot of kidnapping. There's a lot of, killing still going on. There's things like that are prevalent day to day. Even the locals won't even go into the mountains sometimes because of it. So it's like, you're limited with so much out there. So a lot of people, I feel, take that as a deterrent, which is a good thing because you don't want to risk having an issue like that, especially if you bring a group of more than 2 people out there. I mean, obviously, you've got an outsider that shows up into town. Everybody know about it because there's somebody different. So
right,
in a group of people coming in, everybody and their mother's going to know about it. So it's like those.
The reason it's so hard to learn anything.
Yeah.
I have to go total geek on you, but like, what's your snake kit like when you're out looking for
kit?
Like
kit,
like
the herping kit, the herp bag. Yeah,
you got a notebook, you got a temp gun, you got.
I actually funny. Somebody asked me that today. So I have a 60-liter hiking internal frame pack that I carry. And I've got a satellite phone in it. I got a medic pack in it because it can be tricky to find like medicines in some of these areas, let alone stuff that's equivalent to what we can get. So that's like one of my big ones. I've got a really nice solar power bank that I use to charge up, my phone if I need it, or any, my headlamps. I usually bring a couple headlamps with me. I don't bring any snake equipment or like hooks or anything like that because I don't need them.
Right. Sure.
Venomous where I'm at. A couple pairs of jeans, a couple shirts, lots of socks, and some flip flops, and that's pretty much it, and then my camera. I do have a height like a camel pack that I use sometimes, and that's pretty much it. It's not really exciting.
Yeah.
I don't have anything special or secret or anything I bring with me. It's like,
Yeah. I just think of like how I pack
Yeah.
differently for like a trip in the US herping as opposed to when I'm going to Australia. It's just you're not even really that remote.
A friend of mine. Yeah, I mean, you're really remote, so it's like, and I'm thinking in my head right now, it's like, what else do I have? Oh, I've got like all my UV meters and my solar meters, radiation meter. I've got weather stations I bring with me. I have pH meters I bring sometimes. I have a couple notepads to take notes with me. Trying to think what else. My poncho, my sleeping bag because I sleep out there. And
you put some data loggers out too, right?
Yeah, that's right. I did data loggers also. I didn't put anything out this time because it was a new area, but I will on the next my return trip. I'll bring out a data logger and see how it compares to these other places. But it's not like a real crazy. I mean, it's nothing glamorous or fancy or anything like that. Or it ain't Bear Grylls or anything like that. It's just my comforts. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I have. No, that's about it. Yeah, it's not a lot.
Okay. Minimal. Okay. I like it.
Travel
they're
light.
all making fun of me because they're saying no coffee making apparatus.
Yeah.
Exciting. I have an inflatable mattress, a car jack I bring, jump starter kit, big screen TV.
The essentials. Yeah.
Look it up.
All right. We did have a question. Here's a question that has to do with Boelen's being bred. Who successfully is there something that all the people that had success? Well, I don't even know how many people had success.
Yeah.
But do they have something in common that contributed to their success? Do you guys
breeding
know?
in captivity?
Oh, that is a wonderful question there that we've all been wanting to know.
Yeah.
What's the secret?
There have been what are we up to now, Keith? I know Frederick was 5 times?
Frederick did 5 times. Yeah. I mean, there's more successes now than when you and I started our journey together, for sure. And to me, it seems like, yeah, you got Scott.
And then Scott Flood just reproduced successfully for his second clutch, and then his friend Mark, I forget Mark's last name, but he's in close proximity to. I think they're like North Dakota. He produced another clutch also. So there's 2 clutches that have been produced in the last 2 years from these 2 gentlemen, but they also have a really large group of animals that they're utilizing multiple males with their animals, which is a great idea.
Aside from Frederick, it seems that a lot of the people that have been successful have a larger group than normal of Boelen pythons.
Yeah.
Frederick was kind of the exception to the rule.
Yeah, Frederick did it with a single pair multiple times, and then different pairs, but they're single pairs multiple times also. So that scenario is definitely different on his plane, and I don't know what he did or has done. I don't know if he knows, honestly, what it is. But I've spoken to Scott. He's a very nice guy, and he was very successful these last 2 years, which is great. And his friend Mark, and they've been Scott's been very helpful at sharing information with his captive stuff. And he's been utilizing multiple males in his breeding scenarios with a single female and then rotating males through that female and stuff. But like I said, he's got a large group of animals, so he's able to do that. But it's not to say that's the way to do it. It just seems to be proving more prevalent in his situation as well as Mark's.
I feel like it's a numbers game where it's like this male might be the one to breed, and if you only have one male and he doesn't want to breed, it kind of
even easier to breed species like blood pythons. When I had like 50 breeders, you know, there would be animals that you really wanted to go and they just wouldn't go, but you had 15 other animals that would so you look like you were super successful because you had so many animals, but in reality, you know, you were hitting and missing even on these easier to breed species, you know.
I'm almost at double digits in white lips. You know, that's how I'm gonna do it.
Another thing also too is with I totally forgot what I was gonna say. With these animals is, like I said, these large numbers. My God, I totally spaced out what I was gonna say there. I know what it was. We've never been able to reproduce, or we've never bred, to my knowledge, and I'm pretty sure I'm accurate on this. There has never been a captive produced controlled environment animal bred with another captive bred controlled environment animal too. So example, you've never had captive produced animals from the US breed together to see if there's any kind of elimination of issues, like kind of like how back in the day when people were trying to breed chondros, remember how difficult that was in like diamond and such. You know, they had to breed out that almost wild kind of tendency or whatever you might call it. So we've never had true captive bred animals being bred together to see if a one-on-one breeding scenario would be, you know, successful.
I think we're 5 to 10 years away from seeing them a lot more available and seeing that captive breeding getting easier.
That would be cool to see the like F2s, F3s, and stuff like that.
Here's just an idea. It's just sort of formulated in my head, so it's not really a question, but I'm just curious of what you guys think about this. Okay, diamond pythons come from a cooler environment, similar to like what you're saying with the, you know, with the Boelens. You say the males are always on the move. The females are leaving the sheds and the scat outside. Hopefully those males are picking up on the pheromones and finding out those females. Do you think, or have you heard any stories of mating balls similar to, like, I think of garter snakes, I think of diamond pythons were in these cooler environments.
That's an expensive ball.
I can't tell you like how many times I've seen this, especially this year, more so than any. Maybe it's just because people in Australia are just sending me more pics, but like a breeding ball on their steps, in their barn, in their, you know, in the park. It's just like, I don't know. What's your thoughts?
Well, so it's interesting you should say that, Eric, because like I remember initially when I was working, like, you know, a number of years ago, I had thought of that scenario like the garter snake breeding masses, you know, like these huge, where you've got like one really fertile female and you've got 20 males that are just combating over her, crawling all over her and getting the scenario. I thought you know, that's a good possibility. So I've asked a lot of these locals. They do say that they see multiple males following females during breeding season. So that could go to show that that is a very strong possibility with what happens. You know, that there's multiple animals that are breeding with a single animal in the wild, and that would also go and benefit you know, Scott and Mark's successes where they're utilizing multiple animals too in their scenario as well. But I always am like hesitant with, you know, when I'm comparing a wild situation versus a captive situation, because we're ultimately controlling our parameters in captivity as opposed to nature where it's doing it naturally. And obviously we're trying to learn what the natural stimulus is and everything, so we're trying to relate that to captivity, but I always think of it as a little bit different because we're trying to alter certain things. But I'm very excited to see, because I know Scott and Mark are, I'm sure, will be breeding up or raising up some of these animals and trying to breed them together to see, you know, if it pans out, like where you can do a 1-to-1 ratio as opposed to doing, you know 4 or 5 to 1 or 2 to 1 or something like that,
Right.
There's always that rumor of some species need the competition of another male in the area of like people always get 1.1 olive pythons and they can't get them to go. But then when they get that second male is when they get the eggs. And I'm not sure if that's just because olive pythons don't fit in the norm of 4-year-old female, 2-year-old male eggs, and they seem to take longer to mature. So,
olive, in my opinion, are a whole other ball game. I mean, they're such a cool snake, but they're like, I've had my fair share of olivaceous work, and I'll stick to Boelens. Yeah, yeah,
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, yeah. But I think in that scenario, like I think compatibility plays a huge factor.
Yeah.
So in an environment that's weather parameters are so cool, it might benefit having for lack of a better term, an orgy to basically stimulate follicular growth or development or pheromones, male sperm to start moving the way it should, or things like that. I mean, there's so many different scenarios that we could talk about with it, but I definitely think that could play a huge factor with success. I mean, they are not a rare species in the wild. They reproduce multiple times and they reproduce every year. So that is not a problem. It's just we have issues with them in captivity.
Yeah.
Now we're able to keep them alive as opposed to, back in the 70s and 80s where everything came in and, would drop dead in a week. Now we're able to raise up these babies incorporate them into breeding scenarios, and we're starting to have success with it. So like what Keith said, I think we're still out, but we're getting much closer.
When you think of multiple males too, think of the options, right? So let's say somebody in captivity is going to try 2 males with their female. It's still totally different than multiple males in the wild, because I found out that the dominant male just blows that little male off. Now in the wild, you have 4 males working that female. The males can't bully up on one male and drive him off. You know what I mean? Because there's many other males. Or do you play it? One male breeds, you yank him out, you throw another male in, and they're worked up and they breed. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of different. You can't just say multiple males. There's a lot of different facets to that equation, also.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think too, isn't the garter snake situation where like she actually doesn't she like seal up her cloaca or something?
The male will plug it after he successfully breeds.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Because you don't want anybody else getting in there.
It's all about survival. It's all about survival of the fittest, right? Just like those skinks that we saw in Australia that literally just rape the female if the female can't get away. But if you have these males, right, the strongest one is going to be the one that gets to breed with the female. She's testing them. They're testing each other, and she's going to allow the strongest animal to pass on the strongest genes.
Exactly.
I think too. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. It's also probably positively stimulating her having all that interaction in the male smells and the spurring and all that, and the flipping and the turning and all that things too. You know that it's causing. Usually, it's like saying, "Hey, it's time to breed. This is what's going to happen." And that way, that you might have 2 larger males doing that, and you have one sneaky little male that's the viable one. Pops on in there when those other 2 males are wrestling. There's a lot of different scenarios that could play out.
Yeah. I wonder too if it's like one of those while the sometimes if I think this was similar to I saw this with sea turtles where like they get too busy fighting and then one sneaks in and does sneak mating. So here's an interesting question from Robert. What do the local people tell you about Boelen?
So they see them there as a definitive fixture of the environment, without a doubt. I mean, every local knows what they are. If they live in the mountains, they know what that snake is. Okay. There is a lot of folklore and ethnographic kind of relationship in different you go to. Some of them, obviously see the animal as a food source, not in the area where I'm at. Some of the animals are seen as like a deity, like a god type figure or a protector of the forest, a bearer of bad news or a bringer of good fortune. So there's a lot of mysticism involved with them, as well as belief in different beliefs of these animals and how they're portrayed depending on which region you're at, or if you're on the west portion of the island, on the eastern portion of the island, or if you're in a different remote area, and vice versa. So yeah, it's a very known animal as far as what it is, and its influence in a lot of the culture there.
Okay,
that's cool.
Ari's got some really cool artwork that he brings back from over there, and Eric, we got to start doing that with Australia. Bring some of that,
dude. I'm already waiting for you guys to go again, because I'm going to send money to Keith. I want a saltwater crocodile skull.
Yeah, that was crazy.
The fact that we didn't get those when we were in Darwin, I hate it. Yeah. Yeah. I keep collecting books and stuff rather than buying more snakes. Well, no, I keep buying snakes. I don't know what's wrong with me. So.
I would bring a bag with me because I'm always bringing art back. I mean, that's
it's
awesome.
very cool. He's got some cool stuff.
Aside from being absolutely in love and infatuated with Boelen's pythons, my other infatuation is oceanic art. So like I love collecting all that, and I'm just. Fortunately, I have a museum here at the zoo that I can display it all. So my house is filled now.
I feel like that's worse now. You're like, cool, I got a spot for it.
Yeah, it's like, spot on the wall. What am I going to put there? I know.
I'll figure it out.
I know you've talked about this before, but here's Chris. He's asking, I always wonder what it's like about the food in these wild locations.
So like,
eats bat.
As what I'm eating or what the animals are eating?
What you
no, what you're eating.
Okay, so not in. So everything that you bring, you've got to basically carry up to the village, and then from the village, obviously, where you're going to look for the animals, they're a couple hours or whatever. But village is usually about anywhere from an hour to 2 hours hike to get in, so it's really remote in there. And so what I usually end up eating is a lot of rice, a lot of noodles, sweet potatoes, potato vine. Stuff like that. Very rarely do I eat meat in any of the villages. It's not to say they don't, but it's not as common. I mean, they save that for special situations. They all have pigs and everything, but it's very rare that I think I've eaten a pig once in the entire 15 plus years I've been going there, and that was in a village, and it was like a big ceremonial. Yeah. But for the most part, it's a lot of like rice and potatoes and vegetables and noodles like that too. So,
okay,
yeah, which I like.
Yeah.
The McDonald's up there is no good. Like the drive-through work. The apple pie,
this is
right?
I always joke because I said I wanted to set up a hot dog stand out there and I'd make $1 million. Love it.
What is it like conditioning back as far as food goes? I mean, I imagine that like you clear your system out.
I like within maybe up until about 5 days ago, I've been like shitting my brains out. Like how it goes. Like you're so used to we eat really dirty, in the US because there's so many preservatives and chemicals and all that crap that's in our body's accustomed to it. So when you go over there, everything is straight like from the ground, or there's nothing added to it. So it's like plain rice, plain noodles, a sweet potato grown outside. There's no preservatives in there. So when I get back, I usually have the worst gas on the planet, and then I've got to get my guts back in order. Usually it takes me about a week or so, slowly conditioning to myself to eating things that are what I would be eating here in the States, because I've been eating, other stuff too. And also like when I'm in Indonesia, I usually spend about 4 or 5 days in Indonesia just to kind of decompress and kind of relax and stuff like that. And I mean, I'm eating a lot of noodles and local dishes and stuff there too, a lot of spices and chili. So it doesn't help my, bowels when I get back. So, but
I'm curious, do you feel, does your body feel different when you're there as opposed to
feel a lot lighter. your sleep is better.
Mm.
You get up without being groggy.
Yeah.
Even after like hiking, like I mean, I'll go hiking and I'm like basically dragging myself back to the hut to lay down, and then I'll lay down and I'm like back up in another hour, and I'm like, all right, let's go. It's like so your energy level's much different,
Yeah.
in than being in the States and stuff like that from just eating that crap.
Yeah.
I've
just have
done
this
that.
firm belief that like, we're putting crap into our bodies and wondering why we feel like shit.
Hell yeah.
Good, man.
So when somebody experiences that, I always wonder. if
Listen,
it's-
the Doritos are fine. Let's just move on from that. We don't need to keep attacking such things. But I will also say
the
that
ice break coffees are.
I mean,
okay,
listen,
Owen? Is what you're saying?
I don't care what was in the ice break coffee. It was delicious.
Lots of coffee. I drink coffee already every day, but when I'm over there, I drink lots of coffee because it's like
Oh, you do?
yeah, oh yeah. We sit down and we drink coffee like 4 or 5 times a day.
Yes.
Oh,
all right.
I'm in
Yeah,
heaven.
Eric's in heaven. Yeah.
Like too, so make
Oh, that's great.
But
Does
I
it
mean,
taste good?
Oh,
Is it just like yeah.
I will say that, like, on herping trips, you stumble in and you crash at like 2 a.m. and Rob Stone is like, we will be up at 5 a.m. because we need to get to the next place. And it's like any other time I would come up and I would be like, kill me. But like, because you have this adrenaline that we're going to go to a new place and check out a new thing, you sit bolt upright, and Eric slept in the corner like this, like a vampire. And yeah, so it was, you kind of, it jazzes you up that way too. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's I think, well, obviously my trips so far haven't been as extraordinary as yours have been, but like I'm in a similar vein of like thought with trying to understand carpet pythons. Like, for instance, like my thing is everybody talks about these areas where they intergrade. I'd like to go there just to see them for myself and observe them and sort of take what I know about carpets and sort of apply it to that same type of thing. But
I mean,
yeah,
if you want the same experience, the next time we're on a trip, Keith and I can put a bag over your head, zip tie you, and put you in the trunk. Is that what you want? Like, I mean, it's
Right.
we can do it.
We're supposed to insert a shameless NPR coffee plug here, Owen. That
Shit, we
our
missed it.
carpets and coffee blend is from Papua New Guinea.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to send you a bag, Ari.
All right, I'm deal.
like
Deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's like, yes, free
I'll send you
coffee.
back.
Cool.
Hey, I'm a coffee. My wife and I are coffee every morning. So
Yeah.
Cool.
100%.
So
Okay. Keith, put us back on track. Give us a
yes,
bonus
we can
question.
talk about
Come on.
bowling, Keith.
So Ari, you've been going for 15 years.
yes, sir.
And you're roughly in the same area most of the time. Have you seen the area change because of human encroachment compared to when you first started going?
That's a depressing question. I don't want to know.
Definitely.
I do wanna know.
Yes, very, very much so. The areas like it just like the villages keep getting pushed further and further back, but
Mhm.
their access to the villages keep getting easier and easier. So like roads now, like we were hiking on this road, we were hiking up the side of this mountain for like an hour and a half to get to this village, and they told me it's like, oh well, when you come back next year, this will all be paved road for the truck, and I'm like, really? They're like, yeah, we've got so they're moving it. Like habitat loss is a huge factor up there, not just for Boelens, but just for preserving any like just tribal life is like like I was talking to him, an old friend of mine that was in New Guinea in the 70s, and we were talking about how like it's so cool to see like traditional attire like penis gourds, and like women have their breasts exposed and they've got their grass skirts on and everything. It's very tribal. I didn't see any of that this time, and I was far out. I didn't see anybody wearing traditional attire at
That's
all.
sad.
Yeah,
That's
so
sad.
like quickly being changed to a Western world. I mean, they might own a shirt and a pair of shorts, but they're still wearing a shirt and a pair of shorts, as opposed to a grass skirt or a kateka or something like that. It's so it was a surprise. And there was an old guy that I'd always seen, and I was wondering if he was there this time. I see him every time I'm there, and he always like dresses down whenever he sees like a foreigner come through. He always dresses down to try to take a photo with them. I didn't see him there at all this time, so I was wondering where he was, but I didn't see any attire at all where I was at.
Wow.
And the area that the Boel and I actually live in, is that able to be developed, or is it just too sheer of cliffs and
Oh no, they'll
that type of
bulldoze
thing?
right through that stuff.
They'll
I mean,
just
they've got
blast and do whatever, right?
right, but I mean, because in New Guinea in itself, like I mean, there's so many like precious metals and mines there. Like they're mining gold, copper, steel. There's all the what's the new thing there? I forgot. I heard something about the material that they use for the Teslas.
Oh, like platinum kind of
It's
stuff. Yeah.
mines now, and I guess Indonesia has one of the largest platinum mines or something. It's like crazy. So they've got like serious excavating equipment that's brought in, and they'll just bulldoze sections out like there's no problem.
Yeah, and the mining that they use for that kind of stuff, like it's not just like dig a hole, it's
No.
tear down a mountain, put
Yeah.
that mountain through water, and then add chemicals that suck all the gold out, and it's just destroying environment.
Yeah, it's not a for developers.
Shit, we just saw that in Florida in the in the pine forest. It was
Really?
Everything's
just
getting developed.
I mean, just cleared, and you're just like, what the hell? Like, holy shit,
I mean, there's been areas that I like, as some of the places I've been before, like they're very developed now, or like I remember on one of my trips, like it was just like this godly hike. It was like a 6 or 7 hour hike in, and it was like the most brutal environment I've ever had to. I'll never. Terrible, but and that area now is all paved, and you can drive through with a truck, no problem anymore. And it's great. I remember walking hills. I'm like I was walking through the mud on these hills, holding on branches so I wouldn't slide down the cliff, and now it's just paved. It's
wow.
crazy.
That's crazy.
I mean, now my concern is that are we going to start seeing more? I mean, I imagine the environment getting torn up is one, but now you have the problem of a road. And how many DOAs did we see in Australia and other places? It's like that's another fact there.
That's say that too. I've never seen a DOA on any of the roads I've been at.
Okay.
I've never seen anything dead on the road, really. Yeah,
that's good.
Interesting. So have you noticed any standing water or running water near the nest? How are they staying hydrated?
Yeah, so I on a lot of these areas, like typically, so like all these prior nests that I've been visiting for all these years and everything, it's almost kind of like this. I call it like a highland bog. It's like always like standing water everywhere that helps create this like perfect humidified environment. And snakes can go out of the nest and not a far distance, drink from outside the nest, but they're also they can cruise around in close proximity. So there is water close by. There's also streams that run through. It rains at least once or twice a day, so water runs down through all this limestone and creates an area. So there's places for these animals to drink. So I mean, they're perfectly hot. I've never seen a dehydrated snake. I've seen a super skinny snake after she just got done laying eggs. I saw that, and she was like really skinny. But I've never seen a dehydrated animal at all.
I remember that animal. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Ari's actually tested the water there too to see if there's anything unusual with the minerals and all that kind of stuff. See anything was different.
Yep. Sent me out some equipment to do that. So, and
is it acidic?
It was real acidic, which wasn't a surprise to me, just because of all that vegetation, and I mean it's such a volcanic area. The limestone and everything. It's like the water's really really pristine. In certain areas. I have drank it. That's how I got dysentery, unfortunately.
Oh no.
I didn't drink. I drink it differently. I was stupid. I think I told you that one time.
Yeah.
People survive.
Well, Ari,
not truthful.
You said if you're not walking on the limestone, walking on the forest litter is basically like walking on a giant sponge.
Yeah. And a lot of these places, it's like a big sponge, and it's like it's just like all these cool like mosses and lichens everywhere, and there's some of the area like I've walked down into it's like just like soily, muddy bog essentially. And yeah, so I've walked in some that it's really a cool habitat. And I've seen my favorite nests to find are the ones that are like not low elevation. It's not a good interpretation. They're all at the same elevation. Ones that are not on the cliffs or a cliff type nest, because like I really can get an idea of encompassing everything that animal's utilizing in that spot, as opposed to like a small fragment on a cliff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wonder if when these animals are on the move, are they in the substrate or are they on top of the substrate? Being that the substrate is so loose, if they're not on the rocks, are they actually crawling through the substrate or on top of the substrate? You know,
I think the adults are crawling on top of it, and I think the babies and the young ones are going through it.
Their skin is so waterproof, right? When you try misting them, it just beads up like a freshly waxed car.
Really?
Yeah. Like babies, I mean, I think the babies just disappear right away through the vegetation and everything. They're gone. And I think they're going down into it because obviously they'll have an abundance to eat really small prey items down there, like little lizards, little frogs, things like that. And then the adults, obviously, there's nothing that's going to be, affecting their survival per se, except for humans or, like maybe one of the new eagles if it was a real big one and it was a small snake. But aside from that, I think they're just, do their thing and they go over it all.
I don't think we've ever asked this question, but I'm curious, Boelen's babies start off red, similar to like a lot of pythons over there. Do you have any theories why? Is it something to do with the environment?
Yeah, so my theory with it is the soil there is really rich in iron, and it gives off almost like a brown, reddish color to it from all that vegetation and particles or whatnot into the soil and everything like that. And I think that basically attributes to helping the animal camouflage because like the soil looks just like a baby Boelen's in a way. And that's just an idea. I'm not saying that's, I'm going to see a bunch of things. Oh,
Sure.
you said they're like the soil now. Like, the soil's really rich in iron, and it has this reddish brown chocolate color to it. And I think that allows the babies to camouflage really well into those spots.
Well, I guess if you were to think of in the carpet python scenario, right, the Darwins and the Popwins are from the top part of Australia,
hiding in the
which
trees,
is similar to but they're the same type of color phase when they're young, so maybe that iron in the environment has something to do with it.
Yeah, it's very possible. Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
now everybody's gonna say Eric said the carpets are red
now Eric
because...
said that worked.
With green tree python, the way I would attribute the baby colors would be to help as like a predatory defense, in my opinion.
Sure.
Bright yellow, bright red. It's nothing's going to want to eat that because they know it's going to taste bad. But as opposed to like some of these scrub pythons and such, they've got like this burnt kind of, chocolate kind of red color. That's not necessarily, in my opinion, something that you'd have, historically, developed to ward off a predator. It would be more or less to help with, hiding from predator, as an anti-predator, in my opinion, whatever it's worth.
Yeah, because a chondro is a different type of red. They're like red,
red, they're bright red.
As opposed to, and I always thought that like maybe because they're hanging out in the bushes that they resemble the color of a flower, like some type of flowering plant.
I think I remember reading this. There was a paper that came out, and it was analyzing the vision on a lot of birds. And for whatever reason, those colors, and this could be completely wrong, I could have been in a dream thinking of this, but the colors basically were not read by the bird's vision.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
So I wasn't dreaming. And that time. And basically those serve as, predatory defense. They can't see them based off of those colors for whatever reasons.
That's like a bright orange tiger. They found out that the primary prey of the tiger, this deer species, does not see orange, and that the tiger literally, when they look through simulating that deer's eye and what it can see, the tiger's totally disappeared. Where our vision picks it up and it stands out like a sore thumb. We're like, how do they ever sneak up on these deer? And they found that these deer cannot see the orange, and that's why they've developed that color.
Also, there's a caterpillar too that looks identical to a baby green tree spider. Also, but as with Boelens, I think it more or less is like to help as a predatory, concealment for camouflage. I think that it's developed, however many thousands of years. They've developed to camouflage into the substrate because it's similar to their coloration. So, and I would probably put money on for python.
Yeah, it wasn't until I started doing a lot of herping where I started to notice, especially with the rock rattlesnakes out west, you really start to see, like, you walk down this one, gully or whatever, and you're looking at this, it's a white stone type of thing, and you're like, oh, that's why these are white. And then you go see, it's just crazy how they just blend right in, but
I mean, right by them, you don't see them.
Yeah, 100%. Here's a question from Aiden.
Yeah,
have we ever had Boelens from the PNG side of the island imported into the US? Could they be significantly different?
Very nice question. So historically, everything has come out of West Papua. However, there were a number of confiscated animals in the early 80s that came in from PNG. Some other animals trickled in from PNG as well. Now, the laws in Papua New Guinea on the eastern portion of the island, which is Papua New Guinea, are highly protected over there. They're still protected on the western portion of West Papua, but their protective status is very, very different on the eastern portion. So coming in is not a likely thing. So there was a few of them back in the late 70s and early 80s that came in. However, there's nothing currently. There's a photo of one I had in my first book with a friend of mine, Ian Riccio, who's curator of LA Zoo. This one was when he was a keeper at California zoos out there, and he's holding it. It's a huge animal. And they, in my opinion, they both look morphologically different than Western portion populations. However, there needs to be more research done on it. I have been working in the last couple of years of a couple field trips over to Papua New Guinea to observe Boelens over there to be able to do more work with those populations as well. So I would say, so to answer that question, yes, in small moderation there were in the early 70s and 80s, but there's nothing now. And we feel that the eastern populations are different morphologically than the western populations.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, wasn't the old thought too that they tended to be whiter in coloration?
I was about to ask that.
Yeah.
That's been a topic in the Boeleni conversation world since I remember first getting started with it. And there's been reference to animals that have been like strikingly yellow, and there's been reference of animals that are like a pale white to a cream white color, and everything bright yellow coloration. Everything on the eastern portion of Papua New Guinea is cream to white color. However, there are animals that display yellow banding as well. Also, in the way that the animals are photographed, sometimes it can give the illusion that they are white as opposed to yellow.
Right.
Flash. However, there are two distinct words for yellow and white in the Indonesian language that is referred to, that's utilized in West Papua as well as in Papua New Guinea, and they refer both either as yellow or white on the eastern portion. So once I'm working my way to get over to that side over there, I've been actually dealing with that the last couple of days coming back because I have a friend over there that's been a local friend that's been doing some, scouting areas and things like that for some potential sites to investigate. Because those animals I definitely think are different than the western population.
That's cool.
I mean, it would make sense. Most of the species are sort of separated.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think with those West Papua and Papua New Guinea is not geographically, split. It's politically split.
Yeah.
Right.
So, however, that mountain chain is extensive and it starts all the way up to the Bird's Head Peninsula, all the way up to like Fak, and it goes all the way down to the middle of Port Moresby. So it's like, it's a huge, extensive range. It would be interesting to get data loggers out in a nesting area in Papua New Guinea and relate it and compare it to animals that I've collected weather data from West Papua as well. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Did I get all the questions? I think we did.
Well, so far. Yeah. The ones we have so far.
Okay. Got anything, Keith?
I think we touched on a lot of the bases. I mean, I always got questions, but
Yeah, I know.
Oh, don't worry. Yeah.
But I think Ari's touched on everything. Yeah.
Here's one. What's that?
How my skull's doing over there, Keith?
Yeah, I know. Holy shit. I forgot all about them damn things. They're still in that back room.
Right.
Yeah, we got to get them mailed out to you. You know what? It probably makes sense at this point to do it after Christmas.
Oh yeah. No rush at all.
They'll get lost in the shuffle there. So Ari was able to get some of his artwork back, and when he came up for Amanda's wedding, he came up and stayed with us for a couple of days. So,
oh, okay.
Oh,
Cool.
the skulls that Ari did. Yeah.
So I left them in one of your Keith's back rooms. So
that's why we've been visited by so many spirits and ghosts lately.
If I had $1 for every time I left priceless artwork at Keith's back room, I mean,
every
God
time I
damn.
left somebody's house,
Yeah. Keith has everything. So it's
I think we've talked about this, but have you seen any Boelen in the tree on your trips, or are they always on the ground?
Question. So I've got a couple photographs of a female up in a tree, actually, basking. It looks like. I don't know if I have it. Let me see. While we're talking, I might be able to send it to Keith, and he can post it. If I can find it. It was actually a really cool photo. He was out doing. I don't know. I think he was out basking or something. Must have. Yeah, it's the first time I've ever seen that. Let's see if I can.
That is cool.
Talk amongst yourselves if I can find it.
Well, Ari's here. I mean, again, this could be a time where I try to mail him my resume to see if I can get a job at a zoo working. I can clean cages, I promise, and I have been known to breed an animal or two.
Very cool.
The only thing I need help convincing my wife to move to Texas. It's the only thing that's holding me back right now. So. Yeah.
And they're looking for somebody to put on a mermaid suit and swim with the
I
river
will
turtles.
Put on shells if you can tell me that I can work it. Like I'll figure it out. Don't worry. It was.
Wow, I actually found it. Can you believe that? I'm so
yes.
Nice.
Go. Let me get the.
Send it in the
I'll
group.
swim with the crocodiles and sing, Keith. Yeah, it'll be great.
Yeah. You can
they'll shut down that program in 5 whole minutes. Yeah.
I would love to see that.
Shut up. We don't have a high enough Patreon thing for that.
Yeah, that's the big tier. All right, this is a pretty cool picture, actually. Let me get it up here.
Good reference for the ask that question. I'm glad I actually
that's
found
awesome.
It. Right?
Of course, now it's not letting me share it.
God damn it.
Hold on.
We can promise the people who are,
why is that not coming up?
Trust me, it's the coolest picture.
It's awesome picture. It's great.
Yeah, it's so great.
It's so cool. It's like the first couple seasons of NPR when we looked at pictures, be like, yeah, it's awesome. It's a great audio content, guys. Yeah.
Have
Hold on,
another.
let me try again.
Well, you try. It looks like I got another one here.
It's not coming up with the.
If you want to highlight that question, it looks like we're asking how bad is smuggling or poaching of the Boeleni in West Papua? It's how bad is the smuggling or the poaching of Boeleni in West Papua?
Well, as with everything, it is as bad as it is. Bad as the demand.
Yeah.
I mean, I always hate seeing it. We live in a world now where there are, you can do everything essentially, and a lot of these places that I go to, even being so remote, younger generation all have phones. They all see social media. They come across things that and they're very specific people, and they should be because they don't have anything. So there's a photo right there. So I saw a lot of babies this time that were collected. Unfortunately, it was very exciting to see all the babies because I absolutely in love with Boelen's pythons and everything about them. But it was also very heartbreaking knowing that the majority of all are probably going to die. So that's just the reality, supply and demand. That's the best way to do that. What I can say is there are some people that are working with them right now that are having success, hoping that the continue, and then it drives the prices down for other people to be able to acquire these animals, enjoy them,
100%.
Yeah.
opposed to a social status. Did I say that? And also, it's just how it doesn't matter if it's a Boelen's python, a green python, a blue tree monitor. If people want them, there's somebody out there that will try to get them for them, and thing they want out of it is money, and that's all. Money drives the world essentially. So
yeah,
we have to take care of what we public as far as like what our passions are, what we're looking for, what we're wanting to collect as a collector or a hobbyist. Ultimately have negative consequences, not just on us as a keeper, but it also will have consequences on animals, and that'll be even more of a factor. They'll bite us in the ass down the road.
Yeah.
Well, I finally got it to work.
Yes. Yes, you finally. Yeah, we
tree.
can see the Boelens in the tree.
And that's a good size animal.
Yeah, it's a big animal. Yeah, I like it.
That's an awesome pick, man.
Little thin. If I remember, this one was a while ago. I think she must have, because sometimes they will go off their egg. The females will go off their eggs to bask or to hydrate or something like that. In scenario, because she was skinny. I'm pretty sure she was off her eggs at that time.
Ari, I think that was just before COVID shut down your trips over there.
I think so. Yeah, that was really weird going back in on COVID after COVID too. That was really strange.
Yeah. You didn't know what you were going to find because you lost contact with some of the people that you knew there and all.
It was like going into a zombie scene. Like there was like no out, and it was just everybody was like just like on. There was the tension. You could like cut it with a knife. Essentially, it was so tense.
Really?
Yeah. This last time, well, I mean, when I just got back, I mean, they had a big uprising. I'm working on this other book too, so this other trip was helpful for me because I was like, I could get away from all the hustle and bustle with the zoo and all my personal life stuff and everything, and I could just kind of sit in this grass hut in the mountain, and I could work on my research and my book. So I was writing about it, but there was a big issue maybe about 4 or 5 months ago. I don't know if you guys want me to talk about it or not, but
yeah, no,
yeah,
totally.
Go for it.
Apparently, they have a huge market in the city, in the capital, up in the Highlands, and everybody goes there and sells food, vegetables, meat, whatever, trinkets, all that shit. It's 90%, tribal people that are there, and then you've got Indonesians, you've got a few Chinese that are there, not too many in that area. And these people go there basically get things that they need. So apparently, two Indonesians, I don't know who they were or where they came from or whatever, tried to kidnap a small Papuan girl. She was like, I think she wasn't an infant, but she was like 4 or 5, and and a lot of the kids, they just run around and nobody's paying attention and stuff, but they always know where. And these two guys tried to kidnap her, and she ran back to the market, screaming and everything, and it caused a gigantic uproar and scene. Should have. And the gentlemen that were trying to kidnap this girl, they took off, and then like mob followed them, and the police got involved, and basically the police sided with 2 men, and the locals went nuts and then just started tearing shit up. And it was
boy,
burning buildings down, sending arrows out. A bunch of people were killed, in both military and locals. My friend called me, and he was like, he had to shack up with his family in the police station because that was the only safe place to be.
Jesus.
And when I got, like, there was cars burned on the road. It looked like a scene from Mad Max when I showed up. Things are burned. It's not a friendly environment. It's people are like, oh my God, it must be incredible. It is incredible, but it's not friendly. It's not it's a happy place. In a lot of these areas, it's dirty and dangerous. There's not a lot there except for these snakes up in the mountains. So I'm only out of the city. Like,
jeez.
But yeah, so that was a big one. And that just had kind of like calmed down, and they shut down the internet to the area so nobody could report on it, and the military was just going through blasting people, and like locals were like, shooting arrows, and I got pictures of like military guys with arrows on their necks and their chest and all this stuff, laying on the ground, getting hacked up and everything and stuff like that. So
Jesus.
Just makes me think of how much our problems here are. Like, it's just a different level of.
Eric's store ran out of bottled water and there was a riot. Yeah, so,
we would not survive.
Yeah, but like these people, like that's I feel for them because obviously those guys were up to something negative, and but they should have done is just let the locals have their way with them instead of the police, basically trying to de-escalate the situation, because they did not want that at all, and they just went crazy. So
Chris asked if you have seen any croc monitors on your trips.
I have not. The area I'm at, they are not inhabiting, but they are in areas where I know where to see them. I just haven't had a chance to.
Riley was asking if there's any dangerous people there, but
I think we already covered that. Yeah.
From outsiders, they don't like outsiders.
The locals are very to themselves. They can be very, very kind, very caring and accommodating if they get to know you, but they're very shy people. There's also a lot of militant people they call the OPM, and they're like freedom fighters. And basically they have military firearms, military, vests, all that stuff, and they're Papuan, and they live in the mountains, and they fight with the military there, and they will kidnap anybody that comes through. Predominantly it's the people outside the mines, but there was a big OPM thing on Papua New Guinea where there was a New Zealand pilot that was bringing food to a remote village, and he's still with them right now, and this has been like 6 months. So they kidnap people. That's not an uncommon thing, so
right. Jesus.
That happens. So and women are also treated differently in that environment, also in that part of the world, because obviously they're not seen as equals as the men there. So rape is still a prevalent thing that happens there, and kidnapping and things like that too. So it's a dangerous place.
Yeah.
Yikes.
I'll stick with Australia, where the only thing we have problem is that we get lettuce on our toasties. Yeah.
Lettuce on our toasties. Oh boy. Inside
Inside our grilled cheeses, there's lettuce. It's weird.
That's good. Inside jokes. I was going to ask, I don't know, Keith, did you have any other questions before? Because we're about 10 minutes.
Almost
Yeah,
near
no,
time.
I'm good.
Okay. I was going to ask two things. How is the Replandia going? How is that? Like, couldn't have you on and not talk about that.
You need to go.
Well, I want to. Like I've been, I watch Ari and his wife post up stuff all the time, and I'm like, please, just can I? Yeah,
anytime. I always need help, with stuff, and it's going really well. It's it's a new business, obviously, so the word is getting out on everything, but everybody that comes out is just blown away and very happy with what we've done, and we're still fine tuning things and finding out what works best and what doesn't work, and we're moving lighting and stuff around too to make more aesthetics and things like that, but it's going really well. It's we have a very impressive collection. A lot of times I take it for granted because I'm so used to seeing it every day.
It's off the wall stuff for sure.
Yesterday we did because we're closed on Monday, so my wife and I we got a hold. One of the nice things about being rural out in Texas is we get a lot of livestock stuff we have access to. So I got a hold of a couple big 8-pound rabbits, and I euthanized one of them humanely, and I tied it up and gave it to the Komodo and let the Komodo do what it does.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah, just the Komodo do Komodo things. I take the collection for granted. There's our dragon. Yeah, whatever.
That's awesome.
And letting him utilize all of his important muscles and be active when as opposed to just gulleting down a rat or something like that. So
that's great.
It was fun. So it was a good time, but yeah, you guys are always welcome. I've got a guest room. You're always welcome. If not, I've got a hotel like about 20 minutes from us. So
that's where we stayed, and it was very accommodating. And you literally get on the road and just coast right down to Replandia. It was perfect.
Yeah. I'm sure
a lot of good food.
I'm sure we convince Teresa and Keith to take another trip, like on the weekend or something.
Pretty sure
sneak away,
twist Keith's arm a little bit to be like, "Hey, we're going out to Ari's." Oh no. Yeah.
We also West Texas Carpet Fest, which was a lot of fun.
The other thing.
Yes.
So maybe you guys will come down for the next West Texas Carpet Fest.
I think I will have to try to make a trip because I'm dying to see your place, and I like I said, I just want to leave copies of my resume places to see what happens.
The very cool thing is you can explore Replandia and you can just sit there in front of exhibits and drift off to wherever the thing is, right? But then you can also, walk on Ari's property and find. We found some cool snakes, but the best part is going to chill on Ari's porch as the sun's going down. And just sitting there and just chilling and thinking about the day. It was just nice. Really amazing.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I would have been out there for the Carpet Fest, but I was herping in Florida and we already had that booked. And I was kind of bummed when I was like, no, of all weekends.
It'll be fun. It's like we, like he said, we have some really cool herps on property. I think we've had 11 species on property. We found hognose, patch-nose snakes, coach whips, emperor rat,
alligator lizards.
Alligator lizard. We had
atrox.
Yep, atrox, copperheads, all sorts of cool stuff. Yeah, and then our birds. We have some really beautiful birds that are here also as well. So you guys are more than welcome anytime. And Keith, you don't even need to ask.
I'll just show up.
Keith just shows up. Yeah.
Brings the black and white cookies for Ryu.
Absolutely.
There you go. Yeah. Keith's on our front doorstep again. Damn it.
You don't have a date for Carpet Fest for 2024, do you? No.
Get one for you because we're gonna try to make it a yearly thing because it was a lot of fun and
sweet.
Cool.
Had a good time, and it was just low key barbecuing. My good friend Kyle came out and he was barbecuing, and you got like boudin and all this stuff, and we just everybody's just hanging out, talking about snakes and walking around, looking at the zoo. We closed it at like 11 o'clock and just had fun. Just a good time.
Yeah,
that's the dream. So yeah,
that's how it goes.
Awesome.
Cool. Ari, if anybody wants, is there any way that they can help you, support you, anything as far as
contribute to your research, Replandia, something?
Yeah. So all my research is funded primarily out of my own pocket, and then I also have a very, very important sponsor, Todd Goodman from Timberline, who has been with me through the beginning, who generously donates to my research twice a year. And then I also have a couple other people that will donate here and there as well. So anything helps. If you're interested in, just send me a message. You can, go to my website, projectblackpython.org, or you can find me on Facebook, send me a message or something like that. And, just, wanted to thank you guys for having me on again. And thank you for always supporting me with what I'm doing.
100%.
I think somebody put in there about an NPR Boelen Eye shirt. I think we may have to dust off and do that again, because I know we had 2 models for you at one point, and I wouldn't mind doing that again. So
I think that was fun.
Yeah,
and we can put all the proceeds going to your research.
Yeah,
that would be great.
So I'd like to do that. That'd be fun.
I always use another shirt.
Yeah, I could always another Boelen shirt. Oh no, like I'm pretty sure I have 4 now. Like it's
right. Still looking for a cowboy hat for you, Keith, even though your head's too large for everybody.
If you can't find one, nobody can.
And I drive by that place every day. I was there the other day driving by, seeing my mother, and I was like, man, maybe they got a new shipment in. I'm like, nah, they probably didn't.
You guys think he's kidding. We were in Texas where everything's supposed to be big, right? So when Ari's busy and, they're still putting Replandia together when we were there, Teresa and I would drive around, like within a 50-mile radius, to stop at every hat store they had down there. And there wasn't a damn hat that fit my freaking head.
I got the one in Australia that fits my giant head.
We got that fits mine.
Yeah. Do together.
No offense, Owen, but I think Keith has a little more brain power.
Whoa.
Even the guy in the store, he's like, sir, I've never seen a head as big as yours.
Sir, we cannot accommodate such a large head. It's like, oh.
He literally can't walk through the door because his head is too big. Nice.
Thanks for bringing that up, Ari.
Yeah.
Do what I can.
Thanks for giving these guys more fuel. That's good. Yeah, that's great.
Excellent. Yeah, anytime. So do you have a trip? I don't even know if I asked this. Do you have a trip lined up for next year? You do already or no?
I'm going to be doing another jaunt, and I'll probably do another. I don't know what time, but I'll be going back to the same spot. I'm going to probably mix it up so it won't be the same time, because I want to see if those areas are active aside from the area too. So, but I'm also trying to plan out this Papua New Guinea thing as well too, where I can time it to also to be able to kind of see if there's any weather differences on things like that, and then just be able to put hands on a Papua New Guinea animal and just look at it compared to the West Papuan one. I mean, they are different in my mind already. So, but there's always
okay.
That would be cool.
Well, we'll have you back as soon as you come back.
Yeah, sweet, dude. Yeah,
chat about that again.
This is
we
good.
Appreciate you.
We can always have episodes. Keep coming in. It's fine. I love it.
The holiday episode.
Oh, we're getting there.
It's coming up.
The holidays,
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming and hanging out. Thank you, Keith, for bringing your Boelen Eye knowledge and keeping us on point.
I don't know if he's protecting Ari from us or us from Ari. It's a little bit of both. I don't know.
I think he's protecting me and Ari from
you. Protecting Ari. Whoa. I'm a delight. Don't how dare you?
Yeah. What do we got to say before we go?
We gotta
Check out the things and the things.
Yeah, the things and the stuff. Great. It's great advertising. Thanks, buddy.
Good job.
Yeah.
Cold-blooded caffeine. Since we were talking about Boelen's pythons, you might as well know that in the show notes there's an affiliate link for Carpets and Coffee, and that is a PNG
blend
coffee.
Yeah.
It's quite delicious. Yes,
it is.
Yes,
Nice.
It is my favorite of all of them. I've had all of them, and that one is the best. I know it's a little. It seems like it's biased, but he made it specifically to my taste
for us, and that's,
so
of course.
Yeah. So you got that. You can follow the link, and you'll get some awesome coffee. Those guys are great. Cold-blooded caffeine, and then we have cafe. Which we have
different. Don't drink cold-blooded cafe stuff.
Yeah,
cold-blooded cafe stuff is where you get your rats.
Off your first order.
First
right?
order, yeah.
First order. Okay.
MPR 10 gets 10% off your first order.
Calendar should be probably by maybe Thursday. I'm thinking.
Those will be up soon. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's it.
The Patreon. Go to the Spring Store. Check out the stuff there, and I think the next episode is, I think we're going to try to squeeze the breeding episode in before Nipper gets mad, because we have to talk about how to breed a carpet python again for the 14th year in a row. It doesn't change. Like but what? Fine. We'll do the breeding episode again. And then I think we're staring down the pike at the holiday show where we must now put up the poll, air grievances, and drink merrily while on a podcast. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's about normal. And then we'll take the break, and then we'll be back for season 14 of MPR. So
I think that might be wrong, but yes,
14, 15. I don't give a shit. It all blends together now. It's
very good.
I've been trapped in this prison. Won't someone help me? So, yeah,
I'm gonna have to go back. I'm gonna have to find the first time Ari was on, because because
years ago, many moons passed.
The first time that you came on the show, first of all, I couldn't believe that you were going to come on the show. That was number one. And then number two, I'm like, oh my God, it's like being starstruck, like, oh my God, this guy's like in Boelen Python, blah, blah, blah. It's good stuff, man.
Oh, yeah.
I'll have to find it and put it up. But yeah, I guess that's it. Go ahead, Owen. Say your
say your stuff. That's all we have for everybody this week. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll catch everybody back here next week for some more Morelia Python Radio.
Thanks.
Good night.